Mom abandoned us, leaving me to raise my brother. Now she's dying and needs my kidney. My brother pleads for me to save her. What should I do? I, 29F, need some outside ideas since I'm in a terribly mess up state. Saying no will cause our family balance to be destroyed, and I'm under pressure to give a kidney to my estranged mother, 52F. We learned my mother's kidneys are failing last month. She must start dialysis, which is not ideal long term, according to the experts. She needs a transplant right away. Out of the 2 children of my mother, I am a perfect match and Ezra, my brother, is incompatible. They tested me and my brother. There is really crazy pressure to donate. Saying it's a chance to heal our family and atone for Mom, Ezra is asking me to do it. He doesn't understand that I am not the one who left. I am not interested in healing anything. It was not me that decided on drugs instead of family. It feels like a smack in the face when he asks me to save the mother he hardly knew at the price of the sister who reared him. Though my dad, 54M, is not directly pressing me, I can see optimism in his eyes. Though he claims he will help whatever I decide, it is clear he wants me to do it. It makes me ill since he is dreaming of having his lovely family returned. Mom hasn't straight up asked me for the kidney, but every time I see her I can sense the question hovering about. Part of me wants to scream at her and find out where this worry originated throughout my 13-year raising of her child. Knowing her life is in my control, another element seems strangely strong. Here's a little background since, although you might assume I'm vengeful, I am not. My mother disappeared from my life 16 years ago along with my brother. He was 5 years old and I was 13. She was hooked on drugs, and one day she simply disappeared, leaving our dad. Dad made every effort, but he had to work insane hours to have food on the table and a roof over our heads. Dad always worked, hence I essentially had to raise Ezra. At 13 years old, I was helping him with homework, making sure he ate, and trying to explain Mom's absence from the scene. It sucked, massive scale. I was so busy playing Mom, so I missed out on childhood. Growing up, I was furious with everyone. Mad at Mom for leaving, mad at Dad for not being there enough, mad at Ezra for needing me so much, and mad at myself for not being able to make everything right. While I was figuring out how to split a package of mac and cheese into 2 meals, I saw other children lead typical lives. Ezra found it easier. I confirm this. Though it meant I could not. I wanted him to have as normal a life as possible. I concealed my own tears so I could clean his, lied to him about why we cannot afford things, acted as though everything was fine when Dad and I were hysterical about finances, and so on. It was abundantly evident as we grew older how different our early years were. Ezra went sports and hung out with friends. I was too busy becoming a mini adult to engage in any of that. This widened our gulf greatly and got more pronounced with time. Dad was doing his best, I understand now, but back then it felt as though both of my parents had dropped me. Though it still stung, I know Dad had to decide between being here physically and ensuring we wouldn't go without food. During my teens and early 20s, I was messy. I drove people away, made poor mistakes, and partied too excessively. Starting to handle all this baggage required years of therapy. Things improved when I met my 31M hubby. Though he has been quite patient and sympathetic, my prior problems surfaced even with him. I panicked out when he initially discussed starting a family. Being in charge of a child brought back all these ancient anxieties. We worked for 2 years to reach a point where I felt okay about trying for a baby. 6 months of trying have gone by now. This is now when my mother came back. She simply showed up on my dad's doorway brilliantly and early, like an abandoned child at an orphanage. Not wasting any time, my father allowed her in and summoned Ezra and me in for a family meeting. My mother struck me as a stranger. She wanted to right things and said she was clean. Though Ezra was all for it, I was dubious as heck. It was simpler for him to forgive her as he cannot recall the worst of times she spent doing drugs. I saw it. My mother was my personal hell. Still, my dad urged us to give her some time, which infuriated me. Though I stayed away for their family reunion, I could tell he was eager to see the lady he used to love. Before I left, I hardly spoke a word to my mother. Living with my dad once more, during the last few months, my mother has been working to mend connections with us. She kept her cleanliness, found employment and expressed regret for her actions, but for me it is too little too late. I have been polite, but I cannot regard her as my mother anymore. That dumb fool Ezra wholeheartedly accepted her return. He always talks about the fun they spend together and how wonderful it is to have a mother once more. It triggers my desire to yell. Like he has forgotten all I did for him, all we went through. Boom, my mother was diagnosed, so I tried to pay attention to my life and not worry. Ezra was crying. My father was crying. And I wished I could have been anywhere else but that hospital room. Indeed, Ezra was keen to be a donor when the doctor discussed the complications of dialysis and the large transplant list my mother would have to join. I agreed with his choice, but he hauled me along too when he was checked for compatibility, and I turned out to be the ideal fit. Not signing the organ donation form, I hurried out of the hospital right away. Why ought I to sign it? Right now, my father and brother claim I have an unforgiving attitude and a stone heart. Instead, they are rallying around my mother and neglecting me. Although my husband swears he will support me no matter what, I can see he is anxious. He has been excellent through all this. He worries about the surgical hazards and how they might interfere with our intended baby-bearing plans. He also notes how hard I have worked in therapy and doesn't want anything to reverse all that improvement. To add to the craziness, my aunt, Mom's sister, 50F, just called tonight. She told me what was a bombshell of sorts. She hasn't forgiven my mother for leaving everyone either. Turns out Mom had been cheating on Dad with a married man and had been pregnant, thus leaving us was not only due in part to drugs. She departed to have the kid and a fresh life, bailing on us once and permanently blaming drug addiction as justification. Though I really don't know how that worked out or why she came back, learning this has opened all the old scars. Mom departed when she had a decision to stay as well as when she abandoned us. I might never run upon a half-sibling out there wherever. I'm still trying to make sense of it. I haven't yet told anyone else in the family about this. Knowing this secret together with all the renal pressure is making me crazy. Thinking about my terrible upbringing and wondering whether I missed some indicators, I stay up all night. I'm wondering every sacrifice I made, every part of my youth I gave up, and how it compares to what I now know about Mom's actual leaving motivation. Ezra is clueless on any of this fresh material. He keeps urging me to donate the kidney, discussing family responsibility and how this could fix everything. But all I can think of is how he got to have a childhood while I was busy parenting him. Dad likewise doesn't know. He seems all soft about Mom once more, and it makes me want to shake him and remind him of all the misery she caused. I am rather conflicted. It almost seems too much to consider having major surgery and forfeiting an organ for someone who decided to drop me. I consider the hazards and how they might skew my odds of becoming pregnant. Already, I have given up so much for this family. My youth, my opportunity to be a normal child, my sense of security. Giving up a bit of my body seems excessive. The villain is me right now. What then, Reddit, is the outcome? Am I the hole for turning down to donate my estranged mother my kidney? Is my attachment to the past excessive? I am the only one who recalls how terrible things actually were and the only one who paid Mom the whole cost for her decisions. This is drowning me with decisions. Every decision seems bad in some capacity. How can I manage this unworkable scenario without totally losing my sanity? Help me right here on Reddit. Update 1. Hi Reddit, I expected no one would interact with this post, hence I intended to delete it 24 hours later. The volume of upvotes and comments this is getting is ridiculous though. I would like to first thank everyone for their opinions on my circumstances. Reading through all of it has given me something to consider. Though I have to be honest, some of the comments urging me to forgive and forget really irritate me. I value those who took the time to grasp my viewpoint. I understand Ephesians 4:32, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as in Christ God forgave you. Though a great concept, you know what? Sometimes forgiveness is more complicated than a Bible chapter. Not only did my mother's actions affect one day or one week, they molded my whole life. I lost my childhood, my sense of safety, and my faith in the people meant to be watching out for me. You cannot just wipe that with a hug and some kind words. And to all those arguing, but she's your mother. Biology does not always inspire love or respect. Sure, my mother delivered me, but I am the one who had to grow up too quickly and had to be a mother to my younger brother when she cannot be bothered. When she was out high and leaving her children to fend for themselves, where was all this family is everything conversation? Look, I'm not aiming to be resentful or nasty. Despite all she has put me through, I am attempting to safeguard the life I have created. A few of you have mentioned complete family therapy. When she returned first, we tried that. It did not miraculously make everything right. Although my mother said all the right things and shed tears, it did not undo years of struggle and desertion. Many of you have brought out the dangers of kidney donation, and I value that. It goes beyond the procedure itself to include long-term consequences. Suppose I have issues that compromise my capacity for childbearing. What happens if I need kidneys later in life? For someone who didn't give second thought to sacrificing me, am I meant to give my health and maybe my future? My hubby has heard me discuss all of this. He reminded me that I had nothing to owe anyone. Not even my mother. So it's acceptable to give my own well-being top priority. The thought of compromising that for someone who has been more of a stranger than a mother is simply too much. We are still trying for a baby. My family's pressure hasn't let up. Ezra has been text-blowing my phone with messages ranging from extreme rage to guilt-tripping. He even ventured to remark that I would be no better than Mom was when she left us if I let her die. That one hurts. I cannot lie. Dad has been more subdued, but every time we speak he sounds disappointed. They seem to have all forgotten what I went through, what we went through. And then there is my mother. At last she plucked the bravery to give me a straight call. I let it drop off to voicemail. Her message was difficult to hear. She was crying and telling me she is afraid of dying even though she knows she does not deserve my support. Though a large part of me remembered all the times I was terrified and alone due to her choices, part of me wanted to reassure her. Regarding what my aunt revealed regarding Mom's affair and the baby she turned over, I still haven't told anyone. Every time I consider bringing it up, I picture Dad's expression. How it would destroy Ezra's recently discovered relationship with Mom. But hiding this is eating me inside. Carrying the weight of her mistakes, it feels like I am shielding her all over once more. This update most likely makes me sound frigid and merciless. Maybe I am. I am exhausted yet as well. Weary of having to be the one who must be strong and sacrifice-bearing. I want to put myself first for once without feeling bad about it. That's where I am right now. Still conflicted, still aching, still unsure about the correct course of action. Though it means playing the villain in everyone else's life, I am striving to stand my ground and give my own health and happiness top priority. I appreciate it. Still, thank you for listening, Reddit. Though I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, knowing there are individuals out there that understand even just a small bit helps more than you could possibly imagine. Update 2. Sure Reddit. Though I realize it has only been 2 days, I am here with another update and things have become even more disorganized. Recall how Ezra stated had been blowing my phone? He realized though, messaging was insufficient. Yesterday he showed up to my residence without warning. While I was at work, my spouse was home finishing some job-related duties. My husband claims Ezra broke into our house yelling about Mom's worsening illness and how the doctors said time was running short. Saying he would pull me to the hospital personally should he have to, he insisted on knowing where I was. Bless him, my husband attempted to cool Ezra down. Ezra wasn't having it, but I was at work and this wasn't the way to handle things. He charged my spouse of poisoning me against Mom, of turning me against my family. Things grew hot, and Ezra actually swung at my husband. Fortunately, my husband avoided it, but he had to physically restrain Ezra to prevent him from ruckling the apartment in search of me. It grew so nasty that one of our neighbors phoned the police. I arrived home exactly as the cops were leaving. Our living room looked like a tornado had hit. My husband had a bruise on his jaw where Ezra had landed a blow. Though Ezra departed when the police arrived, the harm was done. I was startled. I raised a different younger brother here. This was not the child I would have sacrificed all for. It was like viewing the output of a stranger, and a violent one at that. I hoped to gently talk some sense into Ezra when I called him. I raised him not expecting him to be behaving this way. Great error. He grabbed her and began yelling at me. Every name in the book he called me, accusing me of being self-serving and of not thinking about family. Then he said something I will never forget. I'll never forgive you if Mom dies because of you. You will be dead to me, exactly as you are allowing her to die. I hung there. I was not able to breathe. It seemed as though all of my darkest concerns were realized. Choosing Mom above me, the brother I reared, the one I thought would always have my back, was doing. I disintegrated, full on ugly crying, unable to catch my breath. My husband carried me through it, but I sensed he was also disturbed. We are being pulled apart in general from this. To aggravate things, my dad phoned this morning. Ezra reportedly told him a distorted account of events in our residence. Dad now believes I set my husband on Ezra, that I am the one generating all this conflict. He really had the arrogance to claim that none of this would be happening if I just quit being obstinate and gave the kidney. I vanished. I shared with him all about Mom's infidelity. About the baby she turned over, about her decision to leave us. How it was not only the narcotics. I told him how I had been holding this secret, shielding Mom even now, after everything. I told him it was also his fault and that I'd been furious all my life. On the other side of the line, for what seemed like eternity, there was quiet. I then listened to a sob. I had only seen my dad break down perhaps twice in my lifetime. He continued to apologize, stating he didn't know, he should have been there more. I felt terrible. I would have hurt him all over once again in trying to defend myself. But somewhere else I felt relieved as well. At last, someone else was dragging the weight I had carried all my life. Ezra sent me many texts once we hung up. Dad had contacted him and shared everything. Right now, Ezra's song has totally changed. Apologizing, he said he didn't understand and begged me to pardon him. I'm not sure though, whether I can. I cannot simply ignore the things he said or the way he behaved. Mom has been blowing my phone too. Dad ought to have confronted her about the affair back then as well as the child. Her messages combine calls to understanding with apologies. She is stating she changed and was young and afraid. Young indeed. Dad and brother are still adjusting, looking after her daily. All I can think is, where was this empathy when I was young and terrified? I feel as though I am drowning. Mom's health is declining, Dad's messy, and me? I am merely trying to maintain above water. Not sure what to do going forward. Some of me wants to flee, to vanish as Mom did all those years ago. That is not the solution, but I know. I have too long been gathering the fragments of her errors. I'll create different ones instead. I'm now off from work for some time. To help us to clear our brains, my husband and I are considering a little trip. Except for Dad's, I have blocked every number. I need room to consider what I want and what I need. I'm not sure whether I will ever offer that kidney. Even if I wanted to, the way things are currently makes me not sure I could manage to be in the same room as my family long enough to accomplish it. That brings us to the present situation. The state of my family is disorganized. I'm left wondering if there's any way to sort this mess, or if it's even worth trying, because my brother has exposed a side of himself I never knew existed. I appreciate you paying attention, Reddit. About if I should update once more, I'm unsure. I might even pull the original post. Right now though, I simply have to concentrate on healing. Not only for my mother, but also for me. Final update. Alright Reddit, my last update was some time ago, hence a lot has changed. 3 months following the surgery, I'm writing from home. You did really read correctly. My mom received my kidney donation. Given how fervent I was about not doing it before, I know many of you would find this shocking. I am still processing it personally, believe me. One thing should be clear though, I chose this. Nobody put pressure on me. Not my mom, not even my dad, not Ezra. My spouse and I spent some time away following my last update and discussed it. We leased a cabin in the mountains, no cell service, no internet, just us, nature and lots of time to reflect. Although I kept having nightmares and knew I would never forgive myself if I did not at least try to help, being away from the turmoil helped clear my thoughts. The idea of my mother dying and of having that on my conscience was intolerable. I came to see that I was furious at the world, at the unfairness of it all, not just at my mother. And clinging to that rage was causing more damage than anyone else could have. I told my spouse my choice when we returned. Though concerned, he was also encouraging. We visited with the doctors, gathered all the data, and began the process. I will not lie, it was not simple. The operation was difficult, and the healing was more so. You know what though? I have not come to regret it. Not because it instantly corrected everything. Rather, I feel at peace with myself for the first time in years. I ran across my mother before they wheeled us in on the day of the procedure. She was weeping and repeatedly thanking me. I told her the truth, that I was acting for me as much as for her. I could not forget, I'd just forgiven her. I hoped she would recover, but I saw no future in which we would live near together. Though she understood, that wasn't what she wanted to hear. Though some things are better left unknown, I wanted to question her about my sister. We hugged, a true hug, not the uncomfortable ones we had exchanged since she returned. In several respects, it felt like a farewell. I am rebuilding our friendship with Ezra. He sincerely apologizes for his actions. Though sluggish, it's an improvement nonetheless. He is beginning to see the sacrifices I made and recognizing that his recollections of our childhood don't tell the complete picture. Parents, Dad. Dad has been right by everyone's side during all of this. He is also juggling his own shame and regrets. We now find ourselves getting closer in a manner not seen in years. He shares with me his pride in me, not only for the gift but also for the person I have grown to be despite all. She has been amazing. From the choice until the rehabilitation, he was there at every stage. We have a closer relationship than ever. Regarding myself, I am healing in several different ways. Though the physical rehabilitation has not been simple, the emotional weight I have carried for years seems less. Not foolish enough to believe everything is wonderful right now. My gloomy days and my periods of uncertainty still exist. Still, I'm glad of myself for choosing to be true to who I am, not someone else wanted me to be. To each of you who helped me along this road, Thank you. Your comments and your understanding meant more than you could possibly know. Remember, forgiveness is personal and healing is not straightforward. Reddit. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.